Hi, and welcome to my channel. So, in honor of the 20th anniversary of the release of Revenge of the Sith, and the fact that yesterday was Star Wars Day, and really I consider the whole month of May Star Wars month since the original trilogy and the prequels came out in May. But in honor again of the release of Revenge of the Sith, I thought I'd do my kind of mini review of the movie. It's my second favorite out of the prequels, and it also has my second favorite lightsaber battle. So, a couple of things. When it first came out, I saw Revenge of the Sith 3 times in theaters, and I'm pretty sure I still have like the movie ticket stub because I like to collect those. I'm pretty sure I still have that from all the times I went to go see Revenge of the Sith. But like I said, I saw it 3 times in theaters. When it came out in 2005, I had just finished my freshman year of college, and I feel like because I experienced it in theaters 20 years ago and I went multiple times, I didn't want to go see it like now because I know they re-released it. Probably because I think there's a difference between seeing the Star Wars movies when they were released, knowing you had to wait like 3 years in between for these movies to come out, and no, I feel the vibes are different. So I'm glad I saw it then, but anyway, saw it 3 times in theaters. And I mentioned in another video of mine how I have like a lot of like movie tie-in books, and I used to have a lot of Star Wars memorabilia and magazines and collectibles, a whole bunch of things that in retrospect I wish I could have kept, but I have moved several times and it just wouldn't be feasible. But I do have still a lot of books, so I just wanted to go over quickly some of the things I have related to Revenge of the Sith. So firstly, I have the novelization of the movie, which I was like, when this came out, I was like in this space, on a kick, whatever you want to call it. I had an interest in reading the novelizations of movies, and so I read the novelization of Attack of the Clones. I read the book that was kind of like the interim book between Attack of the Clones and this one. Yeah, this was something that I was like into for a while. So I remember like a month before school got out, me like reading this in school before the movie came out, and I was like obsessed, and it's really good. Also, the reason why I like novelizations is I know that, you know, I'm one of those people that likes like deleted scenes and director's commentary, but you know, in this modern streaming age, you know, you rarely get DVD or Blu-ray discs where you can like get behind the scenes stuff. So, and a lot of stuff that's in novel versions doesn't make the cut in movies. So yeah, I love this. It was good. And then I also am a person that likes artwork and stuff. So I also bought this, the making of Revenge of the Sith, just like about the whole production of the movie. I was like really into that, and I have one for like Attack of the Clones as well. So I bought this also. And then I bought the artwork of Revenge of the Sith. And I remember the reason why I was like really adamant about getting this is because I remember looking at the artwork of Attack of the Clones. Okay, I had to take a quick break. Anyway, but yeah, so I remember I had wanted the book for Attack of the Clones, the artwork, because I was like flipping through it like in the Borders bookstore. And I remember really liking the artwork and the sketches for the dress that Padme has when they first get to like the Lake Country, you know, the backless dress. And then I also loved all the sketches for her wedding dress. But for whatever reason, I didn't get it and I regretted it. So I wanted to make sure that I got it for Revenge of the Sith. So, and I don't know, it's just something about, again, you know, I used to really like things like this when I was younger because, again, you know, behind the scenes, you know, stuff in like DVDs is great, but it's also like you get to see the work that goes into, you know, designing a movie, you know, just it's just really cool because you also get to see like multiple drafts of things and, you know, what made the final cut and everything, you know, is really interesting to me. But yeah. See, so they have like some more details about like her wardrobe, Padme's wardrobe, which, I love. But anyway, so I made sure to get that time around the artwork. And then also, pretty much since I've been a Star Wars fan, I've been into like the visual dictionaries that they always come out with. So, like when I was in middle school, I had one that basically covered all of the original trilogy. And then when the prequels started coming out, they started releasing them like individually for each movie. So I have them all the way through Last Jedi, which is the last time I stopped watching Star Wars. I was an okay fan of The Force Awakens when it came out. Like, I got really excited about Star Wars again, and I was looking forward to The Last Jedi. I am probably in the minority that actually liked The Last Jedi. But then, after a while of like introspection about those movies, they're not like repeat viewing like the other Star Wars movies for me. And then I actually skipped Rise of Skywalker altogether. And when I read the synopsis and it basically kind of like retcons my favorite Star Wars movie, Return of the Jedi, that's a no for me. So in my mind, because I watched Revenge of the Sith yesterday on Star Wars Day, in my mind, when baby Luke is handed off to a younger Owen Lars and Beru Lars, that is the end of Star Wars for me as far as the movies are concerned. And with like all the TV tie-ins, I think I've only watched Obi-Wan Kenobi because I'm too old for all that. I can't keep up with all that world building. So, but anyway, back to this. I liked to get these visual dictionaries that also just kind of like, again, I love added detail about things in movies, and notes and everything. And so, you know, see something like this where it's just like a profile of like the Jedi, stuff like that. So that's all of my little movie tie-ins that I had for Revenge of the Sith. Now I did make some notes, just mostly from things that I noticed this time around or I paid attention to watching Revenge of the Sith yesterday. And one of the first things that jumped out to me was in the beginning sequence when Anakin and Obi-Wan are supposed to be saving the Chancellor from being kidnapped, and they have a second chance at a lightsaber duel with Count Dooku. And it made me realize, even though Obi-Wan said, we're going to do this together, and Anakin was like, yeah, they were never in sync. Like, ever, as a fighting pair. And when you compare their fight in Attack of the Clones with Count Dooku, where obviously, Anakin goes in hot and it becomes a problem. Even in Revenge of the Sith, when they start out together and then quickly Obi-Wan is taken out of the equation and Anakin's left to his own devices. When you compare those two fights of them like working together to Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and Phantom Menace, yeah, Anakin and Obi-Wan were never in sync. Anakin was never kind of like calm enough to go at it in sync, in partnership with his master. And he also didn't have enough, I don't want to say obedience, but he wasn't able to follow and kind of connect to the lead of Obi-Wan the way Obi-Wan was with Qui-Gon, which you saw in Phantom Menace, particularly that scene where they're like being blocked by like those force fields or whatever, and Obi-Wan sees Qui-Gon kneeling and then he kneels too. It's like immediately he locks in with how Qui-Gon is getting ready to approach Darth Maul. That never happened. Not in Attack of the Clones, not in Revenge of the Sith, with Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like they were never not locked in. And even though the whole point of, by the time you get to Revenge of the Sith, you're supposed to understand that they've developed this close bond, which is why Anakin's betrayal hurts Obi-Wan so bad. I feel like it was never there. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't, because just from their first interaction in Phantom Menace, it's like whatever was supposed to be there to connect them wasn't. And you can kind of see that in their lightsaber battles when they're supposed to be fighting together against their enemy. But then do you know when they do kind of appear in sync? When they fight each other. And that is my second favorite lightsaber battle, because you can see how equally matched they are. You can tell that Anakin was trained by Obi-Wan. And the back and forth of them in that fight is just like off the charts. And of course the music, and then the callback to Duel of the Fates, and just how in all of this time Anakin could never get locked in with Obi-Wan. Then when he's fighting against Obi-Wan, then all of a sudden everything else falls away. Not the threat of death on Mustafar was enough to deter him from going after Obi-Wan. The way they kept doing that fight in more and more dangerous scenarios, and he was just laser focused on that, just kind of highlights what their relationship was, and how the one time where they were like, equally matched, like, tit for tat, was fighting each other. So that, like I said, it's my favorite just because of the intensity and the movement, and how they, like I said, it gets more and more dangerous. They move from scene to scene, and of course the infamous "I have the high ground," the whole thing. Second favorite lightsaber duel. The other thing that I noticed while watching is it's kind of hinted at when you read the novel versions of the movies, and I'm sure other people have talked about this as well. Anakin never wanted to do anything that the Jedi Council said. He had such an issue with authority, and to me it stems from the fact that he was a slave when they found him. This is a person he was born into a situation where he did not have any free will. He was a child slave. He was told what to do, when to do it, when he could quit, when he could go home, when he could see his own mother. And then for 2 seconds, he has freedom. And then right at the end of Phantom Menace, now you go into another situation where somebody else is controlling your life, down to what you wear in the end, when he's already in the Jedi clothing with the Padawan hairdo or whatever. And it's like, you just went, and it's like, obviously I'm not comparing being in the Jedi Order to being enslaved, but he went from one very strict, rigid system to another one with a little bit more wiggle room, but still based on rules and regulations and a higher authority. And so it's like every time you see that clash, to me that's where that comes from. Nobody ever gave him moments where he truly felt like he had autonomy to make his decisions, because then that kind of goes into, if you think about the Jedi Order, I of course like to think of them in a religious sense since I'm a religious person, but it's almost like, I don't know if this was ever addressed. I'm old, it's been a while since I read all this stuff and watched the movies, but did they ever explain to him what being the chosen one was about? It feels like they never explained to him what that whole prophecy was about. Did anybody ever tell him that they thought he was created by the midichlorians? I feel like that would have helped. I mean, to a certain degree, okay, maybe they did, because he always felt like he was being held back. But I'm just like, again, I'm religious, so I'm going to use this comparison. Jesus, the way he's described in the Bible, he knows who he is from childhood. He knows his purpose. He knows his divinity. He just waits until his adulthood, obviously, to fully come into that. But it's like, did y'all ever, the Jedi, really explain to him why you were so focused on making sure he was trained, calling him the chosen one, bringing balance to the Force? Because the way that Anakin talks in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith is not like he has a destiny to fulfill. It's that he's more advanced in the Force than these other people, and they won't just let him reach his full potential. Nothing. You never hear him say anything about, I have this burden. Kind of like segue in the Terminator movies, where John Connor, in the past, has this burden knowing that in the future, he's going to be the one to defeat the, Skynet and everything. It's like, it just never felt like Anakin had that same burden of prophecy and fulfilling it. It was always about, y'all told me I'm the baddest, but y'all keep, stunting me. Just something I noticed, because they kept having all these philosophical conversations about the prophecy, and it's like, yeah, did you discuss this with Anakin ever? it didn't feel that way. I'm sure there's some gaps filled in and whatever material is around it, but that's just something I felt like this time around watching Revenge of the Sith. And to that degree, now you kind of get into Anakin always wanting a parent. And I know we focus so much on, the fact that he was taken away from his mother. But then when you think about the fact that he did not have a father, we don't know if his mother ever truly explained that to him. And then it's like he was always in pursuit of a father figure. And for a brief moment, Qui-Gon Jinn definitely kind of like stepped into that role. But then quickly he dies. And then, then he's being trained by Obi-Wan. And the thing that I noticed this time around, because I watched all the prequels this weekend, in Attack of the Clones, Anakin says twice that Obi-Wan is father-like. So, in the beginning sequence when they're chasing the bounty hunter that was trying to kill Padme, Obi-Wan is telling him, you need to listen to me. And Anakin says, well, yeah, you're the closest thing I have to a father. And then in the end, when Padme's trying to convince him to go rescue Obi-Wan, and she's talking about, that he's your mentor, he's your friend, and he says, he's like my father. Did Obi-Wan ever feel that? See, this is like the thing. It's clear that Anakin was like, I want a parent to make up for the one that was taken away from me. And he clearly sees this other man that took him under his wing right after Qui-Gon as a father figure. But you never get that feeling from Obi-Wan. And then when you get to Revenge of the Sith and they have their confrontation, he's like, you are my brother. And he keeps calling him, my friend, my brother. It's like, does Anakin know that that's what he is too? Because I feel like where part of the friction is, Anakin wanting to please someone like a child would want to please a father, versus siblings are often in competition with each other. So it's so weird to me that it's like, which relationship were y'all going for? Because the betrayal of what ends up happening would feel different between a father and a child and siblings, which, by the way, I am going to do another video about Return of the Jedi, which is part of the reason why I love Luke's final lightsaber battle with Darth Vader, because again, that is an actual father-son relationship, and you feel the tension in that. But yeah, that's just something I noticed. Just like Obi-Wan thought of him as a brother, but Anakin thought of him as a father. So I kind of feel like from Anakin's perspective, how he felt betrayed by the Jedi, how it cut deeper because this is a person that raised you. I don't know. I really am just talking off my head, just things that I noticed when I was watching it. And back to the sibling thing, to me, when you get to the part, okay, so Qui-Gon, acquires Anakin's freedom. From the very get-go, even before Obi-Wan meets him, he doesn't want this extra baggage, right? That whole thing, why do I sense we picked up another pathetic life form? Qui-Gon introduces them on the ship, whatever. When they get to the Jedi Temple and they have Anakin tested and they tell Qui-Gon, we're not going to train him. And he says, then I will take him on as my own Padawan. And Obi-Wan gives him this look like, are you for real? I'm standing right here. And then that's where it feels like Qui-Gon isn't like a Jedi master who's training them. It feels like it's a father with an oldest child, and now there's a new child, and all of a sudden this child takes precedent. I don't know. It's like, and so when you look at it that way, where it's like it's a sibling that Obi-Wan never asked for and that Obi-Wan now has to raise, to me, that's why again, them not being in sync, that's part of the reason why there's constant conflict, because it's like, for him, it's like a sibling he never wanted. And Anakin is like, this is the guardian, the only guardian I have. I don't know. He definitely gave off those kind of Cain and Abel vibes of competition with the sibling. And again, to that end, with Anakin wanting a parental figure, who was the only person that he got validation from and what he considered a true concern for his well-being? Palpatine, and we obviously see how that went. So it's like in that void of the Jedi, just by the nature of how they were trained and how they operated, we're not able to give him that parental guidance, love, affection. He got all of what he thought he needed from Palpatine, and obviously that was his downfall. But yeah, those are just some things that like really popped out to me this time around watching Revenge of the Sith. And then the last thing, which I've had a hard time watching all of the prequels, to be honest, this time around, considering our current political climate. Like, it's kind of rough for me. But one thing I thought was interesting is I went back and I read the portion in the novel after the Emperor creates the Galactic Republic, and it's the conversation that Bail Organa is having with Padme. Ooh, let me see if I can find it. And the reason why I find it interesting is because it kind of speaks to the fact that, you know, revolution and change takes time. And sometimes you're going to have to wait it out, even when you don't want it to. Okay. So, here's the part after he declares, you know, Palpatine declares himself emperor, and obviously Padme has her famous line, so this is how liberty dies, with cheering and applause. And so Bail wants to hurry up and like put in a motion to prevent this from happening. And she is freaking out like, no, because they'll arrest you if you go against it. And basically tells him you have to vote for him. And there's this part where she says, Bail, it's the only way. It's the only hope you have of remaining in a position to do anyone any good. Vote for Palpatine. Vote for the Empire. Make Mon Mothma vote for him too. Be good little senators. Mind your manners and keep your heads down and keep doing all those things we can't talk about. All those things I can't know. Promise me, Bail. And then this is the part that really gets me. He says, Padme, what you're talking about, what we're not talking about, it could take 20 years. Are you under suspicion? What are you going to do? And she says, don't worry about me. She said distantly, I don't know I'll live that long. So that just really struck me because obviously what happens 20 years from Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars A New Hope. So that idea that, you know, you can see something crumbling, you can see something bad coming, and you can do all the organizing and all the planning, and it can still happen, but that there is an opportunity for hope to reverse it. But realistically, if it took a whole bunch of moving parts to get to the point where your democracy crumbles, it's going to take a whole lot of moving parts to get that democracy back. And it's just such a kind of chilling reminder, the way Bail Organa reminds her, like, girl, what you're talking about, like, basically, and she says it, they might not be around to actually see it. And that's, you know, just a reality in a galaxy far, far away and in ours as well. So, yeah, that's just my little mini review of Revenge of the Sith. Like I said, I consider May Star Wars month anyway, so I am going to do a video about my favorite Star Wars of all time, Return of the Jedi. But yeah, rambling thoughts just this during this Star Wars season about Revenge of the Sith. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you're a nerd, if you're not a nerd, hey, I hope you have fun anyway. Thanks for watching.